Association and some of the other ideas associated with the so-called sit-in movement. And of course, let us welcome you, Brother Lillard, and you, Professor McKissack, to the show this morning and tell you how delighted we are to have the two of you with us. Let's start off by having you, Leo, to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And then Professor McKissack, during this first segment, will give us some information dealing with her background, education, and then during that second segment, we'll get into some of the ideas in reference to your participation in the movement. Let's talk about it.
Thank you, Dr. Haney, for having us on. The Nashville Civil Rights Veterans Association, very proud of you for maintaining this wonderful way to educate and communicate with the Nashville people. I'm a Nashvillian. I went to Carter Lawrence High School, Middle School, and Cameron and Pearl High, and I went to attend TSU. It was called A&I, Tennessee A&I, in those days, 1957 to 1961, and graduated. During that time, of course, I was a member of Kelly Miller Smith's church. I was baptized in 1954 in Kelly Miller Smith's First Baptist Church up on 8th Avenue, the old building. And of course, he was the center of a lot of the movements in initial adult infrastructure, into adult organizations. So naturally, when it was known that we were preparing to demonstrate downtown to continue what Greensboro, North Carolina started, called a sit-in, I was extremely adamant about being part of that, being a Nashvillian, being a part of Kelly's church. And we continued that sit-in the entire winter of 60 right on through 61.
How did you become involved? And I think, Professor McKissack, we've had you on an earlier show, and you talked about being raised in Detroit. Talk about how you became involved in the movement once you arrived here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and attended school in that city, and mostly went to white schools where I was in the minority and was interested in attending an HBU, and somehow that led me to Nashville. And upon coming to Nashville, I did attend Tennessee A&I University, as Kwame stated. And I was living in the city. This was 1961 when I came, and had watched things about what was going on in the South, but really hadn't made the connections between myself and what it really meant to be black in America till I came to Nashville and really was confronted with adversity and saw Jim Crow firsthand. Not to say that the North did not have these problems, they were just not as you were just not openly conscious of many things that were going on, especially as a young teenager growing up in a middle-class family. But I lived in the cities, and when I came, it was right after the Freedom Rides had occurred and students had been expelled from school. And some of the Freedom Riders were coming around in the student union trying to recruit students to continue what they had started in the sit-in demonstrations in the city. And I volunteered and found myself in the midst of it, facing adversity for the first time in my life.
The great civil rights movement in a real sense, the getting ready, trying to be prepared for the movement itself. When you think in terms of your involvement in that movement, what really motivated you over the last minute that we have during this segment?
Kelly Miller Smith's sermons on Sunday was basically saying, one motto was, how can you say you love Jesus who you've not seen, hate your brother who you see every day? That resonated with me as a middle school kid when I was at Cameron, and he's constantly reminded us that faith means you act. You don't just pray, you act based on your faith. And that was his sermon. He was a social, active Christian, and that's what I heard from the pulpit at Kelly Miller Smith's church. And I believe basically that it was time for us to act. And so when it was clear that Jim Lawson was teaching nonviolence and teaching the tactics of Gandhi, It was our time to make a difference. It was we had to say, if not now, then when? If not us, then who?
Very
Yeah,
good.
that was John Lewis.
And of course, let us take this first commercial break, and we'll
Okay.
be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.